I'm very happy to be here today. Thanks for having me. I don't know what you guys envisioned today is going to be like. It said, I was looking around and it said, I will talk about the behind the scenes of being a pianist. It's too complex to just call it behind the scenes of a pianist. So I'll talk about the complexity of it, I guess, and how each pianist or musician has obviously, like you and I, have different experiences in life, right? So today, what I'm here to talk about is I want to sort of reassure or just tell everybody flat out that times may be tough. The world may be not so great right now. We have amazing things that have happened technologically, but then as a result of that, there may be some things that may lack. Humanity, compassion, and empathy. And I wanted to talk about these subjects from my vantage point and from my experiences of being in the classical music industry, being a musician and performing artist since the age of 10. And so, just a little background, I was signed to a very commercial artist management company called IMG Artists. You guys know IMG Models, IMG Sports, right? I was the youngest one to ever be signed. And when I was 10, I started traveling 3 to 4 times a month, playing concerts, making money, and dealing with grown-ups. But it all kind of started, because I was very talented. I was, quote unquote, a prodigy, as they say. And I just had an innate joy and passion to perform. And through navigating my career when I was little, I got to come in contact with so many different types of people. People from all over the states, America, the South, the Midwest, Northeast, you name it, and then Europe, and then Asia. And so from a very young age, I got to experience at firsthand different types of personalities, different types of cultures, different types of, perception of life and perception of society, right? And when you're 10 or 11, you can't really distinguish, oh, this person is this or this person is that, right? You kind of take it all in from the basis of how they interact with you. And I'm pretty sure no matter where you go, people are going to be nice to a 10-year-old, right? They're not going to sort of put the same sort of pressure or the same sort of, even if I was, quote unquote, a professional, everybody was really kind towards me. And when, now in my late 20s, I think about all the little things that we are concerned about when it comes to social conduct and stuff like that. I never really experienced that when I was little, right? And so I say that's sort of like a double-edged sword because maybe I am a little bit out of touch with reality in terms of how you grew up. Saying going through the regular schools and going into the job force at a certain age and growing up with your peers that are the same age as you that receive information at the same rate as you, right? I might not have received the information at the same rate as you, but I've experienced things a little bit different than you. So I think I can be here today to talk about my experiences and tell you that, or remind you that we can do things every day in our day-to-day things to make this world a little bit more filled with understanding people, right?
So G, please tell us a little bit more to better orient the audience. How has the piano playing, how has it inspired you? And what kept you going in that regard?
So I want to start off by saying, when I was about 18 years old, I had to leave the stage. I had to sort of quit playing music for a little while, and at that moment, I quit with no intention of coming back. But I did that because I realized at a very young age that I love music, but I also love having a purpose, and I also love people. And as you probably know, classical music is not the most mainstream. You know, not people. The first thing that doesn't comes to your mind when you think of classical music is, oh, I want to go and have an experience that it'll be a life-changing experience for me. That's not the first thing you think of, right? Like if I were to go to, say, a Beyonce concert, I know I'm in for a treat. I know I'm gonna walk out of that stadium feeling like my brain has just been like, right? But you don't have that same anticipation with classical music. You go because probably, A, if you like classical music, you go because you like the performer. B, you go maybe because it's sort of like a high society cultural thing. And we're all guilty of this. We like those things. Those are the social constructs that we have set for ourselves. So of course we're going to do things that follow that, right? And so that's one of them, right? And that probably gives way to the sort of the dwindling of the industry per se. But going back to my point, I just lost the reason, you know, if I was going to do this, I was 18 years old, and you know, normal kids when they're 18, they're like, oh, what college am I going to go to? Do I even have a major that I want to study? You know, but for me, in hindsight, it was not such a big deal. But when I was 18, I felt like, oh my God, like, this is what I have to do for the rest of my life. Like, I'm not enjoying this. I'm not having any fun. I feel like I'm going on stage and being like a circus act because all these people come and watch me play because I'm quote unquote a prodigy and they just want to be impressed. But I thought to myself, this is not why I loved music. This, you know, I loved performing, but I didn't do it so that I could fit some sort of format that we have already created in the industry. You know, like I felt that as I got older, I had something more to say with the music, and because of the things that were happening around me socially, you know, it obviously inspires and feeds into the way I listen and perceive and translate music. But as you know, with most industries, we scream for change, but we're very reluctant for change, right? And so that was exactly the case. And so that's why I left. But when I left with a sort of like a disdain and a disgust for it because I didn't feel that sort of passion and what music did to me when I was younger anymore. But I quit for 2 years. I did a lot of different things. One of the things that I made sure that I did was to collaborate with different other genres of art, visual art, more, you know, what we are as modern day, you know, teenagers are all in tune with, and I was just trying to figure out a way to tell beautiful stories in more ways than one. So because I believed that I was hopeful in the power of numbers. And so eventually everything sort of kind of led me back to music, and it gave me a whole new sort of perception on how I understand this music and how I want to convey it to the people. And for so long I had been beaten over the head with, you know, this is how you're supposed to do it, this is, you know, the format, like blah, 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 whatever it is. But I think for so long, I didn't pay attention to my own voice, you know? And when I was like 23, 24, I started searching for that voice again. I started searching for how I felt when I listened to music when I was 7. I started searching for, you know, there must be, like I came back to this, because I realized classical music has so much emotions that in one sitting, right? So many emotions that we can cover. And it was so shocking to me that I could so easily understand and relate to a piece of music that was written by Bach 300 years ago. And that I could play that piece of music on stage and you will feel what I felt. To me, that's really cool. I mean, I don't think any science can really explain that sort of lineage or that sort of streamline of human emotions that get carried through and passed on over hundreds of years. So that was really fascinating to me. And then I dug a little deeper, and then I asked myself, why if, I can sit you down and you could feel all these things and be sort of, it be like a therapy session almost, if you will, because you feel everything and kind of lets everything out. Why don't people want to listen to this more, And so that began my sort of research on why do we have this sort of compartmentalized notion of what classical music is, as and a lot of people say, oh, that's what we like. I mean, some people just don't like classical music. Some people just don't like pop music. I understand that and I respect that, but perhaps you haven't been looking for the right things, or you haven't been privy to the right things to understand why I make you feel that way. And maybe if you were a little bit more curious about why you felt the way you felt when I played the piece that way, then maybe it could lead into trying to understand from a very different lens, right? And so the next point I want to make, and I want to show a couple of different examples, is I want to kind of stay away from the music for a little while and talk about like everyday things, right? And so I have a story. I was here in February for about a month, and then I went back to the States, and I was in an elevator, and I was mid-phone call, but I got into the elevator, and most elevators in New York City are complete dead zones. And so you lose service completely. But here, everything works. Cell phones work everywhere, right? And so I had just gotten so accustomed to just being on the phone, and so I didn't think twice about it. And when I was in the elevator, and it was like a corporate building too, and New York is pretty densely populated with liberal people, people that want equality, people that think those are good things to society, right? But I was in the elevator and I was like, hello, 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 and then these three people were like, you're in an elevator. And I was like, oh, okay. And I got really flushed. And then I went home and I thought about it, and it like bothered me a little bit, because I wasn't trying to be a douchebag in the elevator and say, oh, I can't, there are people like that, of course, but that was not what I was trying to do. And so, and then I wished, like, maybe it's because like I had just been so accustomed to just being on the phone all the time and not, had I been in New York this whole entire time, maybe I'd been more aware of that, and I would have, shut my phone off or something, or told the other person that I was going to the elevator. But for people who say that they want equality and are liberal and support all these things, and then on a very plain, simple, everyday thing, like talking on the elevator, talking on the phone in the elevator, they give you a dirty look, and they make a comment. If they had just thought, oh, why is he doing that? It could be a number of different things. I could have been the douchebag. I could have been somebody who, had some sort of mental disability and didn't know social etiquette. Or I could have just been me. But instead of throwing that dirty look, they could have thought twice, or maybe a second longer. Or even the fact that, like, oh, maybe he's not white, he's Asian. Maybe, phones work in elevators in Asia, which they do. But I think we as human race now in modern day society, we kind of fall short at the length at which we will go to understand other people, right? And you could blame that on social media, but
How has that experience, transformed into your expressiveness
Right.
into piano, or
Of
was
course.
that concert music that you
Of
wanted
course.
to?
I mean, I get bottled up, and I get really frustrated, and then it just kind of pours out, and I want to figure out, everybody wants to tie in what they do and to mean something, right? I mean, I'm sure you all do what you do because you want it to be a part of a greater meaning and purpose in life. And that's exactly what I do. And I want to encourage and urge everybody to just, go that extra step to maybe think about why and give everybody sort of the benefit of the doubt and say that there's a reason for everything, If a douchebag was on the phone, then you don't say that. You say, oh, well, maybe, he needs to be led a different way. He needs to be shown a different path. I mean, there's ways you could do this. I mean, we do this with puppies, right? If you get a new puppy and they do an accident, we don't scold them, we don't yell at them, we don't hit them. We put them where they need to go. No matter how many times it takes them to get it right, we do it, right? I think the amount of responsibilities that we take on ourselves for our pets should be the same for humans. And not just your immediate relatives and your friends, but everybody. We are all responsible for one another. And if I'm sure everybody in this room want this kind of life where we all understand, right? But I'm very guilty of this. I'm talking right now because I want to remind myself to be a better person, because I did something today earlier on that counteracts exactly what I'm saying right now.
So how has your experience like these transferred to your, I guess, concert piano?
So-
as a performer, as a musician, how has this experience changed or inspired you to connect the dots,
Right.
to think a little bit more about different people or to understand a little bit more? How has that quest led to where you are right now?
So being a
It's a
classical
nice-
musician, it means being a sort of a messenger, right? Messenger of music that has been written a long time ago. It all depends on the interpretation, but at the core of it is a human being that wrote this music, and this human being was probably writing this music because he was inspired by his surroundings, his emotions, and all these things. So it's not just a piece of music, it's someone's soul, right? And I'm going to give you an example of this one piece. So this is a piece, a song written by Robert Schumann. He was a composer in the 19th century. So he wrote this song, and it's called Widmung, and it translates to dedication. And he wrote this song to his wife. And that's the gist of the story. It's a love romantic story, right? And so I am living in 2018. I look at this piece of music for the first time, and I see a couple things, right? I see some German on top. What does that mean? Sincere and lively, right? What do I take from that? I don't know. Let's leave it, right? Sincere but lively, like happily sincere. I'm confused. Can you press it again? Thank you. I have the time, the meter, which is 3/2, and if some of you know music, some of you may not, but that basically means, can you press? That there are one more time, 3 beats in one measure, and a measure is what those lines are, the black lines. Can you press one more time? And then we have, in this case, and not in every case, but because this is a song transcription, we have the lyric on top. And that's the English translation. And just one more time. But I want to pay attention to this. So this is in the very opening bar. And it goes... Why is that? And it's throughout the whole entire piece. Robert Schumann was, and correct me if I'm wrong, but most musicians I know are not very extroverted, they're not very confident people socially, you know?
Disclaimer.
They're not. And so, if it was a confident person and it was super leisurely and they wanted to express their love, maybe it would have been like. But since he's nervous, he doesn't know what she's gonna say, right? So he's like second guessing himself. And all throughout, it's just, it's like he keeps going and pulling back, keeps going and pulling back. But that's love, right? That's a relationship to this day, right? It's like you're not always so comfortable. You always need to be on your toes, right? This song was written more than 200 years ago. Still the same shit happens today. Yeah, so, I'm gonna play this later so you hear the whole thing. But can you press another one? Okay, so, another point that I want to make that I learned through my daily self-deprecating routines of practicing, and I practice about, on a good day, 6 to 7 hours a day, and it's just, it's not pretty. It's loud and it's annoying, and you don't want to sit there, and it's not, oh, you're going to practice, so I'm going to listen to some beautiful music. Never. And I'll show you why. But this is a passage from Beethoven's Piano Sonata number 23. It's in the third movement. And this particular passage is technically challenging, right? And so we as musicians, or instrumentalists, we spend hours and hours to perfect the technique, right? So the technique and musicality and emotion are not two separate things. You need the technique in order to convey the emotions. If you don't have the technique, and we live in a society where the standard is so high, then the emotions which are even there won't even get across poignantly or at all. Because to some ear, if they can't play it right, then they just completely negate any sort of, So our job is to make sure that everything is solid in there so that we could highlight or put a spotlight on what needs to be expressed. So we do these ridiculous exercises. Can you press one? Thank you. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put emphasis on the first beat of the first note of every beat. So I'm going to just do 2 bars, and so it sounds something like this. And then can you hit it again? Now I'm going to do. Can you hit it again? That's on the third beat. And so on and so forth, right? In doing this, so many musicians do this kind of regimented practicing and this exact type of practicing in order to get a passage like this solid and steady. And I was thinking about this. Why do we do this, right? And I was thinking about my fingers. If you look at your fingers, try doing this. Try holding this and trying to play your 4th finger, your ring finger, without lifting any other finger. That's weird, right? Your 4th finger is so weak, right? But each finger has its own characteristic, right? Each finger has its own strengths and weaknesses. I thought about this in a societal point of view. What if these 5 fingers were different people, right? In order to have complete harmony and unison and rhythm in time, right? The whole thing about music is the expression within a given time, right? And history and society and people are constantly moving together in the never stopping time, right? You can't stop time. You always have to go with time. And so the reason why I isolate these certain notes is so that I put emphasis, or I strengthen that one note at one point, and then another finger with another different way of practicing, if that makes any sense. I'm like rambling on right now. But anyways, so that I thought, why don't we literally just force ourselves to put ourselves in a situation where we may be next to this one person at one time, and then another day we may be next to this another person, that's someone that's completely different from us, someone that doesn't understand us, or we don't understand them. But perhaps if we practice this more often, like I practice this every day, then we will have perfect, steady harmony in time, right? So if I keep doing that, you'll hear it, because I'll play it, and hopefully it's good. But here's another point, and I'm just doing this to save my own ass. If it's not good, it's because we have to keep doing it. So that's it.
Thanks, G, to sharing your experience and connecting that with how you practice and how you think about practicing that difficult note.
Right. Oh, I
in
do have one
particular.
more thing that I want to say
Okay.
before I play, though. And so right now, I'm at this point where I want to present classical music in a way that, as a whole, when I play a number of pieces together, has a narrative and a story that we all can relate to. So some of the things that I do may not be so conventional, because, say for instance, like this is the third movement of the sonata, right? I'm making a program where I begin the piece or the program with the third movement of the sonata. Usually, if you're playing a sonata, you play the whole damn sonata first, and you play with the first movement beginning. But I don't want to play the whole sonata. I just want to play the third movement and go on to the next piece. This is very unorthodox. But the music has its components in which I can deliver the message to you, right? And so maybe this can help you better understand the music in general. And I'm just, this is just one little fragment of a pianist in the world doing his part to make you feel something, because that's what music is at the end of the day.
Thank you, G. So without further ado, let's hear
Okay.
how you want to express and what you want to express to us.